Thanks for that introduction. Dave Fryer, product advocate or evangelist at Domo. It's kind of a weird title, but essentially what it means is I travel around and I speak to people, share the vision of what we are trying to accomplish at Domo. Excited to be here today talking about how BI is broken. I know it's kind of like a clickbait kind of title for a session, but it's what I'm going to be talking about is kind of three things that I've seen and our team at Domo have seen how traditional BI is broken. And so to start things off, I know this is going to be a review for a lot of you, but I want to outline what the traditional BI process is and what it looks like in most organizations, just to divide in so everyone's on the same page here. So BI, taking data and trying to make decisions with that data, right? But the data goes through a really long journey before it actually comes across the desk of the decision maker before either she or he can actually make a decision for the company, right? So data priorities, we have data priorities. Where do they come from? Number one, external events. External events, a good example of this would be like a Twitter, Facebook, somebody tweets about your company, somebody talks about your company. It's influencing how your consumers, how potential customers, how they have an opinion about your company, potentially influencing a sale that you could make, right? External events could also be something like the weather, right? How is the weather affecting some aspect of your organization? If you're a shipping company, how does that affect your on-time shipments, things like that? Next, we've got the business systems. These are the systems, these are CRMs that houses all of your customer and sales data, your marketing automation platform, essentially any system that you're using in-house to run your organization. This is what I consider a business system, right? Anything that's tracking from top of the funnel down to sale and then for retention, that's kind of a business system in every aspect of that. And finally, some companies, if it behooves them, they will grow some homegrown application. And that could be a CRM, that could be an internal wiki, anything that is specific to that company, right? So we've got data coming from all these different places, right? But it's not really ready to be reported on, right? Sure, it is in like a pocket, right? If I'm in sales and I log into my Salesforce, I can run a report on Salesforce, right, or my sales data. If I am in digital marketing, I can log into Google Analytics or Omniture or whatever, and I can see my web traffic. But if we talk about holistic company reporting, these disparate systems, it becomes very difficult to paint a view of how your entire company is operating. So what do we do? Typically what we do is we pipe all that data into what we call the back office, right? This is where your BI team, your data warehousing team lives. And this is raw material, right? They're pulling all the raw material here. They're compiling it. Like I said, this is where your business BI team is going to live, or your data warehousing team is going to live. And they're just going to kind of pull everything together. Right? It's still not ready to be consumed by the end user. Then it's going to go to the front office. This is where the analysts live. These analysts are going to compile, they're going to run the queries, that'll grab the data from the warehouse or wherever it's living, and then they will visualize it and put it in some kind of report and shoot it off to the decision maker. And it's at this point, this is where you can start, okay, let's segment our customers, let's target customers, let's make some strategic decisions that are going to affect our business. Here's the real problem though, okay? This person over here, he or she is disconnected from the data by some kind of process. It could be, I don't know SQL, so I can't query the data myself. It is maybe because somebody signed off that, okay, data is useless in this organization until it's been processed in our data warehouse, right? I see a lot of people nodding their heads. You've all experienced this internally. So the decision maker, there's barriers. We create silos in between them and the data. Okay? And because of this, traditional BI fails. And it's not just me that's saying this, is in the numbers. 80% of all BI projects fail. That's from Forrester. Okay? And in my opinion, it's probably because overly aggressive timelines or high expectations, and when something's not done the way they expected it to, well, the project failed, right? And we have a lot of companies that come to us at Domo looking for help. One particular company, financial services company, they spend in the neighborhood of $2 million on a executive dashboarding tool, and they spent about 18 months creating this tool, right? Implementing, and it took them 4 months before they totally scrapped it. So $2 million, 18 months, all this money, all this hard work, gone. And why did they get rid of it? That was relevance. It took the people longer now, because now the data that they were being able to report on in their executive dashboard was pulled specifically from just the systems that they'd connected, right? It took them longer now to say, okay, now we've got to connect the dots about what's relevant and what is, and how does this connect with each other? What's the correlation here with this data? And they were spending more time with that, it just wasn't worth it, right? So it was taking too long. And when we talk about BI, there's kind of two camps, right? There's the business people and there's the IT people, right? And I really like this infographic. I lifted it from our website, and it kind of shows that both are unsatisfied, right? So this shows how successful, in your opinion, how successful is your BI deployment? Okay, and the thing that jumps out to me is that the business people, they're not very happy. What jumps out to me, they don't think the data is there, right? And they don't think the data is there because the business person, they always want this, meaning this specific thing. I want to see this. And IT comes and says, well, we have this, right? And because that's not exactly what they wanted, the business people say, well, I can't use it, it's broken, you guys don't have the data that I need. And so because of that, BI gets a lot of bad rap, or bashing BI gets a lot of spotlight in the business world, but IT also feels the pain as well. Because IT, they want to provide value. They're really smart people. They've got a lot of systems, a lot of programs that are good at doing their jobs, but it's really hard to provide value when step one is pulling the trigger on like a 6-month ETL data warehouse migration project before they can start addressing the needs of the business. Right, and it's just getting worse. This is another infographic, I wanted to include it. It talks about every minute of the day how much data is being produced. Just here's some popular channels, but what I want to point out to this is this isn't just social data, right? There's in the enterprise world, there's new applications, new tools being built every day in order to generate. It's every day that marketing's buying a new automation tool or buying a new tool. And during implementations of Domo, our average implementation is about 5 weeks. It's not uncommon that they'll say, well, hey, we just purchased this tool. Can you connect that as well? Can we bring this into the mix? Just in that short 5-week time span, right? A couple of cool things I want to point out. Tinder, almost 1 million Tinder swipes every minute. That's big. And 400 hours of YouTube video every minute is being shared out. And then the big machine this year, Snapchat, almost 7 million videos every single minute are being watched. That's pretty crazy. So, all right, so BI is broken, right? I told you that. We've got some support from Gartner and Forrester saying that nobody likes BI, right? Or that the traditional BI implementations of projects are broken, they usually fail. But why is that? Well, number one, systems are not aligned with the business drivers. Okay, so from Gartner, 70% of all BI solutions will produce data that's out of sync with the business. Okay, people aren't reporting on things that they should be. People are just reporting on things because they can. And because of that, because of the business user, if they don't know, if he or she doesn't know SQL, which, believe it or not, there are people out there who don't know SQL. This is the audience that doesn't understand that, really, no? Or, okay, no? If you don't know SQL, then you can't go query the databases, you can't answer your own questions, right? And so, traditional BI is not designed for the end user. And because of that, it's kind of guesswork that, okay, this is what I'm going to produce for them, and it's out of sync with what actually is needed. And I think one of the real problems here is this. I think this is kind of driving problem number one, is that most BI projects, there's a focus on data collection instead of focus on the business. So 80% of time and resources are used on data integration, okay? So when they're typically going out and starting a BI project, or when you talk to vendors, they're gonna say, all right, where's the data? Where does the data live? And let's bring it into the warehouse, right? What are you currently using now? What are your current reports? All right, where does that data live? We'll pipe it in. But the questions that they should be asking is, what are some business initiatives that you have? Is it increase sales? Is it to lower cost? Is it to retain more customers? What are the business initiatives? What are the business questions that you have, right? What questions are you not currently able to answer? Once you have those questions, now you ask the question, where does that data live that I need in order to answer that question? And then you start making the connections. Because I think a lot of times, these data warehouses, they're just becoming kind of a catch-all for everything in the organization. So it's not long before it's like a mishmash of just data, right? And you've got so much data, but what's actually relevant? What do we actually need to answer the questions that are going to drive the business questions, that are going to drive the business forward? And then finally, data accuracy. Cleanliness of the data. That inaccurate data, I think the statistic is inaccurate data costs U.S. businesses, U.S. companies, $600 billion a year, just on inaccurate data. In my opinion, data is like a bacteria. You keep it housed in a data warehouse, covered up, you don't know what you've got. Put it out in the hands of the people who are actually going to use it, who need that data. And if you can do it in easy to read visualizations, that's even better. Get people looking at the data, trying to use the data, and it's not going to take very long for them to find abnormalities and fix dirty data. Expose the data to your company, to the people trying to use it to do their job, and you're going to get cleaner data. How are we on time?
You got more than 15.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to tell a story then. Okay, so prior to coming to Domo, I worked M&A in the oil and gas industry, okay, and I was a financial analyst. And this particular deal that I'm going to tell you about, it involves dirty data. And so we were tasked, we were selling a company, and it was really weird because there was, it had 3 different classes of assets. So it had oil and gas exploration, it had convenience stores, and it also had about 50, 60 orphan properties, we call them, kind of old convenience stores that were not in a good location anymore, so they had been converted into rental properties. So we've got 3 different types of assets, and it's really hard to find a buyer that wants the whole enchilada, right? And but that's what our shareholders wanted. The shareholders wanted us to sell it to one buyer. And so, you know, it was my job to put the numbers together, get all the data together, make it look pretty. So I did that. We sent it out to a number of people, and we got one company that came back to us. This guy's name was John Jackson. He owns Jackson Oil. Very interested in the product that we had, or the assets that we had. He called up and said, love the preliminary numbers, interested in seeing more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get on my jet tomorrow, fly down to Utah, pick up you and your team, and then we're going on a kind of like a field trip looking at all the different sites. I thought, great. So I'm up here because I've never been on a private jet before, and the Instagram opportunities for something like that are just, you know, through the roof. So I'm super excited. But then he says, by the way, I'm going to need granular station by station data. So I'm back down here because I actually have to do my job, and I have to make 60, 70 different reports in about 20 hours. Okay. So needless to say, I didn't go home that night. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I'm just on autopilot trying to crank these things out. I finish like an hour before the meeting's supposed to start, go home, shower, come back. John walks in the conference room. I hand him the stack of papers. And about 15 minutes into the small talk, he says, hold on, something's not right here. These numbers are wrong. What's going on? So I've got the chairman of the board of my company, the CEO of my company, John Jackson, and his team. They're all looking at the guy with glasses for answers, and I didn't have any. And my stomach just sank. And I said, John, I don't know. I'm going to have to go back to the data and try and figure out where something went wrong, right? So 20 minutes later, John Jackson and his team are stepping on that private jet, and they're headed back to Idaho when we're trying to figure out where I messed up. $70 million just walked out the door, right? Because of dirty data. And that's why I work at Domo. No, I'm just kidding. No, but think about that. Think about what that dirty data does to the integrity of the data food chain. What it does for your ability to do your job. Now, how many of you, by show of hands, have ever received dirty data, bad data? Okay, if you didn't raise your hand, talking this gentleman right here, you just don't know it yet, right? So you're making decisions in your company, you know, with bad data or no data at all. You know, what does it do to your ability to do your job? Anyone, shout it out. Getting bad data.
Difficult.
Makes it really difficult, exactly. You know, it's debilitating. You can't do it, right? So, dirty data, it's a real problem. I felt it personally. And I'm going to show you in a little bit how Domo solves these problems. But before I do that, I wanted to just talk about a couple of solutions, characteristics of good BI, okay? And so whether you use Domo or you have your own system, these 3 pillars, maybe 4, might throw another one in, if you have these things, you're going to have a pretty good BI solution.
What is your definition for dirty data?
Dirty data?
And the reason I raise my hand is I've never seen a 100% accurate data.
Yeah, see, that's a good question. You know, dirty data is data that
So is it 5% that, 10% that? What's it?
It depends on the organization, right? So if I'm a doctor, right, I want to be pretty sure that I'm telling someone that, hey, you've got this wrong with you, right? If I'm, you know, building a building, I want to be pretty accurate. And the reason why I say that is it just depends on your data, right? It depends on what you're trying to do. So that's really hard to define across the board because you're right, you're never going to have 100% accurate data. But within some kind of confidence interval that I can make a decision for my business, and I know that if something goes wrong, it's not going to be because of my inputs. It's going to be because something that we didn't see or my decision that affects the company.
So with your client scenarios you mentioned, once they start using the products, immediately they lift the lid on the petri dish and start to see what the problems are. How much usually do they end up going from, let's say, 40% dirty data down to like 10 or like, is that something you get to track?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know the number on that. That's a good question.
Can I follow up with you on that?
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, dave.fryer@domo.com. Yeah, so these three characteristics, in my opinion, make for good BI. The data accurate, you know, we don't need to talk more about that. Is the data accurate? Can I use it to make a decision in my organization? Does it get to me in a timely fashion, right? Or are there barriers between me, the business user, and that data, right? Do I have to wait a week before I get the report? You know, what am I going to do with yesterday's weather today? I can't do anything with it, right? Is the data getting to me fast enough? And for marketing, that might be every 15 minutes. For finance, that could be once a quarter or once a week, whatever it may be. Is the data getting to me in a timely fashion so I can make a decision on it before something drastically bad happens in the company? All right, and then finally, is it actionable? So can I take this data and get people around it, collaborate on it, get my really smart people that I've hired, can I make them smarter by giving them this data? Right? Is the data working for me, or am I working hard for the data? So what I want to show you now is Domo. I would be remiss if I missed this opportunity not to show what Domo is doing. So this is Domo. You can't see that. Yeah, trust me, it's beautiful. What happens when we do that? I'm just going to get out of presentation. This is Domo. So what you're looking at right now is what we call a page. On this page lives these visualizations, these metrics we call cards. Okay? So what you're looking at is something that maybe an executive would be looking at. We can see that we've got data coming in from sales. We've got data coming in, from here from Workfront, so project management data. We've got social data coming in from Facebook, cart abandonment or marketing spend by Eloqua. So we've got all these different systems, all these different disparate systems represented, all these different departments represented on one page. But how do we get there? Number one, Domo has a connection strategy. What that means is we have spent, I don't know how many millions of dollars, I heard over $100 million creating this connector library. Over 460 plus pre-built connectors into the most common systems that businesses use today. In addition to these pre-built connectors, we have standard ODBC and JDBC connectors for your off-premise data. So it doesn't matter where your data lives. We can plug into it, extract it, and allow you to leverage it when you need it. Once we've connected to these different data sources, we can go ahead and prepare that data. What I mean by that, so I'll actually show you our ETL tool. So we have different ways that you can transform the data once it's in the system, make it more useful for the end user. What I'm going to show you is called Magic. It's our drag and drop ETL tool. It's as simple as what data do you want to combine? And let's just say that it's a marketing use case. We want to take Adobe Analytics data, so web traffic, and combine that with, I showed you this, and combine it with exact target, so email automation campaigns. So I've got my Adobe Analytics. Exact target, different things that I can do to the data. If I want to clean it up a little bit, dedupe it. What we're going to do is just do a simple join here. Drag and drop. What kind of join do I want to make? Just do enter. By date. Output data. Right there. Adobe Analytics plus exact target. Check it, and then we're up and running. So what we can do, once we've connected the data, we can prepare data, make it more useful before it bubbles up to the end user. I'm not going to show you the visualization tool because it's just drag and drop visualization. But what I am going to show you is our new library, or our new app store that we just announced at our user conference, Domo Palooza. And what it is essentially, it allows you, let's say 5 minutes?
Yeah, sorry.
Let's say I am in IT. I can come in here and it's filtered these pre-built best practice dashboards. So let's say I have concerns about bandwidth utilization, okay? Bandwidth utilization. How can I manage my bandwidth utilization? There's not one visualization or one graphic that's going to answer this, right? But instead, what we've done is we've provided you this best practice dashboard, this collection of cards, that once you plug your data into them, and within a matter of minutes, we can get this up and running. If you connect it to your source data, you're going to be able to answer these questions, right? So what should I be looking at? What are some of the questions that I need answers to? In addition to that, we are opening up our app store that allows you guys to write applications for people to use. So you can be selling your apps inside the Domo app store. I don't know what the timeline is on that. Yeah, okay, so it's coming. So that's the App Store. What I also want to show you is a collaboration piece. I know we've only got 5 minutes. So let's say I'm looking at this card, okay? Cost to acquire service $1 in revenue. We don't have to worry about what's going on here. But I can tell you that if I don't know what's going on here, I open up our collaboration tool, Buzz, and I do know what's going on here. Because I can read that Betty Sweeting just looped in someone named Blaine and says, hey Blaine, working on the new campaigns for retail, media, and manufacturing. Okay, and she's working on that because if we look at this, those are the only 3 industries where we're exceeding our goal number of 60 cents, right? So we're exceeding our goal, so that's what Betty, the marketing coordinator, is focusing on. She loops in sales, Blaine, and so Blaine now knows, okay, 6-9 months from now, I'm gonna have a lot of retail, media, manufacturing leads. So today what I need to do is I need to pick up a target on sales ops, just figure out how we can increase those deal sizes. So this is what's really taking your data and turning it into business intelligence. Getting in the hands of the people who can make decisions with it. And with that, I know we have time for a couple questions.
Yeah.
2 or 3 questions. Who wants a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a question about the competitive landscape in this
Yeah.
in this space. So obviously, tools like this, connectors,
Mhm.
front-end dashboards are, let's say fairly commonish. It seems like a good, tool that you have here. How are you guys keeping ahead? Because as users, I'm going to say, why will I want to invest my time in the market leader.
Yep.
Because if I go from job X to job Y, I want to make sure that
It's
I have
the same,
that
yeah.
portability.
That's
So how do you guys?
that's a great question. And that's why, to be honest, I don't even like it when we're looped into BI. Because when you look at the BI landscape, it's extremely fragmented, right? You've got, we can talk, okay, let's pull this up. Actually, no, we don't need to. Okay, so if we talk about, connecting to the data, there's companies that are really good at connecting to your data. And then, okay, what about the ETL work, right? What about the cleansing of the data and getting it useful, getting it into that predefined schema that my visualization tool requires, right? So you've got companies that do that really well. Then you've got companies that visualize really well, right? But the way I see Domo is kind of more of a business optimization platform, business optimization tool. Everything from connecting to the data, preparing that data, visualizing that data, and then what, right? Well, then that's really where the rubber meets the road, where you can loop people in, collaborate around that data, engage with that data. Everything that I've shown you here, being able to, drill, filter, collaborate, it's all on your mobile device. So being mobile with it, setting alerts on the data, having Domo monitor your KPIs and any abnormalities, any spikes or dips that you have in your numbers, letting you know when you need to pay attention to something. Kind of being an end-to-end solution. I think this is where BI is going. And I think we see that when we look at, okay, so if I want a visualization, I want to visualize my data, so I need this tool, but they're telling me that I need to go to these other two vendors in order to actually get it to that point. In my opinion, that just doesn't really make sense.
So just a quick follow-up. So in that case, do you partner with any of these other kind of designers who build some of these tools, or is it all in-house?
It's all in-house.
For now, but also going down.
Not sure. I'm not privy to those conversations.
Is the data, how can you verify the data is accurate?
How do you verify it's accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, going back to what I'm saying, get it in the hands of the people who use the data, or who are using the data to make decisions on their business. That's in my opinion how the data is accurate, right? But when we talk about a broken connector, something like that, Domo is going to monitor that for you. Okay, so you can see here, this is what we call our data warehouse. Essentially using Domo like a data warehouse for your company. So what you can see is we've connected to 32 different data sources. Inside of that, we have, what I've talked about, preparing the data. So we see that we have here Adobe Analytics, Exact Target, and JSON, and Site Catalyst coming together to build this data set inside of Domo. But you can see these colors here, right? So everything in green means perfect, perfectly fine, data's flowing into it, no problem. Orange means, hey, there was a problem with the last query, or the last time we pinged that source, but Domo can most likely handle it. Red means there's an issue, and you're going to need your system admin to look into it. And it looks like we've got an issue from data.gov, so that's not surprising. It's a government thing.
Just to lob you a giant softball, does Domo have listed pricing, or is it quote only?
That is a good question. I believe they do have listed now. They just announced freemium and starter packages for Domo to kind of get your feet wet and make it a lot more approachable for those kind of smaller organizations. Once you start talking about, I don't know, however many users, that's when we'll get you on the phone with the sales rep and do what it after that. But historically, so I used to work in sales. I don't work in sales anymore. I'm kind of more in between sales and marketing in my current position. I know pricing has changed lately, and I just don't know what it looks like. But we historically don't charge for however many data connections you make or how much data you bring in. So it's by seat.
Let's wrap it up. So, everyone, thank you very much. It is time for lunch. If you like, so if you have more questions, feel free to come up, but let's get